Hey, welcome friends. It's me, Roxanne, Super Doodle Girl. And for today, I want to share with you, let me move these out of the way here. I want to share with you about the 100-Day Project. It's coming up. It is a global project. The essence of it is to pick a project, something you can do for 100 days in a row, kind of to develop a habit, explore your creativity. Well, I have done the project successfully 3 times, and I've had a couple of times I started, but I didn't finish. So I wanted to share with you some of the projects that I have done. So this pile is my first year, from my first year, 2018, where I decided that I would write the Lord's Prayer 100 times in a row. So with that intention, I set my content. It would be the same, 100 days of the Lord's Prayer. And I did not think through what I would write it on. So what you see here, I ended up writing it on kind of whatever would be around at the time. But basically, I worked in this little watercolor journal. So you could see I would sit down each evening, to be about 30 minutes or so, to write the Lord's Prayer. It's interesting to flip back through these because some of the content or things that I see actually have turned into lessons in some of the Journal Jumpstart or the Doodle lettering courses. So sometimes I would pull out a phrase and then do the full prayer around it, but the consistent part was the Lord's Prayer. Now, the year that I did this, I did it with a small group of friends. So you see in here, I was just playing with a brush pen, writing it 100 days in a row. I couldn't tell you what I did on which day. I just know each day I did it. I would share a picture online. Yeah, I did it with a group of friends from the Calligraphy Guild. And so we followed our guild smaller hashtags so we could see each other's work and we commented on it. So we had a little small pod in the big scheme of people doing it around the world. This was an interesting thing that developed that year. Kels was still playing softball, so I needed a smaller form factor. So I got this little cheap journal, glued the pages together to make it a little bit thicker, and I kept it in my little camp chair that I would sit in at her softball games, and I would create. So she was playing, they played a lot of tournaments, so I had a little time in between. So this was really important. This was one of the big things I learned was like, something that is portable so I can create on the go. So now a lot of you that follow me know I love when I'm traveling, I always have something small like this. So it started in 2018. And this is another piece of that 2018 year. I also did some larger pieces and I did some, there was no consistency on the substrate. So it was almost like I'd sit down and kind of whatever popped in or whatever I had at my fingertips, I would grab that and I would write the Lord's Prayer. So I made it through 100 days in a row. And what I learned that year, I learned the power of the small group. So I really, there were 10 or 12 of us, and days 60 to 75 were very hard. So I was glad to have that group. I loved using this small form factor, which is really kind of interesting. This small form factor and the limited tools actually is part of my practice today. So that began developing in 2018. The part of 2018 that was not so great is I had too many different choices. When I sat down, would I make something large? Would I make it small? Would I work in the watercolor journal? So that part kind of made it a little bit hard. Too many choices. So I learned from that. And then 2021, I came back again and decided I would do 100 inspirational words. So before the project even began, I made some decisions. So, and these are kind of samples of what I did. I had a list of 100 words. I wrote the day of the project. So I knew on day one I would do abundance. I would write the date that I was doing it because one of the other things that I learned is that I might have to skip days. Like sometimes life interrupts us, so I could just keep track of the days, know what word I'm on, and then I have these where I could make any other notes that I wanted. And then also, before I started work on the creative, I also made a spreadsheet that had the day, the word, and I added in the definition. And then the next column over, I also collected a quote that went with the word. So for this 100 days of, I called it Doodle Inspiration, I really wanted to settle into these words because I do a word of the year each year. And so I was like, I really wanted to get to know these 100 words a little better. So I did all this work before the project launched. And then the other thing I decided is that I would have a consistent form factor. So I got these two. They're watercolor journals. These are from Handbook Journal Company. One's a little bit lighter weight than the other, so I wanted to test those out, but they were the same size. So I did 50 words in each of these, and when I finished, I have a little paint on that one. But before I even drew anything before I even started with the first word, I was really clear on what my intentions were. So I put the dates. I wanted to create about 30 minutes. I would take a word and interact with that word in some way, maybe the definition, maybe the quote. But that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do watercolor and pen. I wanted to play and have fun, and I would work in this form factor. So let's take a peek. I also left this first couple of pages for some journaling. This 2021 was the year we had the winter freeze here in Texas, so I got behind several days. So my process was, I knew at the back I wanted to have a little grid for 10, so I needed 5 pages. And this is where I documented what I used to create each of the pieces of art. I made a note of the watercolor type and the pens that I used for the lettering because I knew I would forget by the end of it. So yeah, so I have that annotated here. And then I counted out my 50 pages and then added in extra artwork around. So here's just a little flip through. You can see in the beginning, I thought I would do the supplies actually on the artwork, and I didn't like that, so I dropped that very quickly. And what you will notice on these as I flip through, you'll notice some trends as you see my style starting to develop. Before I began the first day of the project, I tried to remove as many barriers as possible because I knew things would come up during the course of the project, and I wanted to have a plan in place that would help me manage when I needed to change or to pivot. And as I flipped through this, some of these turned out much better than others. I tend to not sketch before I letter, so sometimes my letters are quite crooked, my spacing's a little bit off. So another part of my intention was I wanted to be able to come to a page very quickly and let that page evolve and merge. So with this one, I might just put empower on it. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I really like the quote that goes with empower. So how can I add that to the page in some way? And so you'll notice as I go through the journey, like some words just take a completely different form to it. Yep. And so there's a little bit of that first one. I really enjoyed this journal because I like the little bookmark. It could I'd know exactly where I needed to come to. And then at the end, I can put the little rubber band around it. So this year in 2021, I think the thing I learned most from it, this journal, I've got a note here, is 140 pounds. This one, I think was like 90 something. 95. Okay, so that's the other thing that I work on is to get better about making notes. So 200 GSM and 300 GSM on the papers. I explored a lot of different types of watercolor and some illustration and journaling styles. And it was really, I'm not going to say it was an easy project to do just because I spent about 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour each evening. But I saw so much growth in my creativity. I saw a lot of growth just in my skill of coming to the page and generating an idea very quickly and then moving with it. So this was 2021, and it was called 100 Days of Doodle Inspiration. So my final spread, I love this spread so much, 100 Days of Doodle Inspiration. So I included my hashtag, the date, and these were some of the data from it. So it was 115 days total for me. I did a word definition of quote. I had, oh, this year I shot little time lapses. So if you go back in the feed or over on YouTube, you can see in my shorts, you can see time lapses of all of these, so that the 2019 videos I didn't create, I ended up shooting them in conjunction with this project. Lots of the tools that I use, my favorite Meister Eckhart quote to close it out, and some of our mindful doodles. And again, the annotation at the back. So this was quite a successful year. This one I felt really accomplished. It was a bit overwhelming. So with the inspiration, when I posted these on Instagram, I had a little backdrop, and so that I'd created in Canva. So it had like a little cover and a little, I think it might have been a carousel feed, but I got the posting on Instagram took too much time that year. So I was like, the project was good, but the posting it on Instagram was too much. So let's not fast forward. Let's go to the following year, was 2022. I did it again, y'all. This year, I decided to move from this 5x8 size, and I shifted down to a 3.5 by 3.5 inch. This was, we had so much going on this year. It was Kelsey's senior year. We were going to lots of softball. Oh my gosh, she was on varsity. I had a lot of softball, a lot of stuff going on. So I did a smaller 100-day project, smaller in form factor. I kept the lessons of things that I have learned. I did a little bit shorter time. Most of these I could do in no more than 30 minutes. I did use my rules-based approach. So this year I didn't set out with 100 words to do, but I set out with an intention of I wanted to work on my illustration a little bit better. So what you're looking at here, this is 6 days of the project. So on the first day, I would look at, I was using Peggy Dean's botanicals book. So I would try to draw some botanical. I would make a pattern. I would draw it with my non-dominant left hand, and then I would make a pattern, and then I would draw it funky and make a pattern. And that's what I did for the first 100 days. So you will see, and with this, so I'm working on my illustration skills. This paper is not, this is not watercolor paper. It's not even really a good, it's definitely designed for just markers, pen, and pencil. These are the artist tiles, so they're already cut with the little edges ticked off. But because I was using watercolor, I had to figure out and kind of learn how it would work on these tiles. So there was a lot of exploration with that. I did start to explore. I made the conscious decision. We went color, and I did black and white and pencil. So all of those are the kind of rules that I would put around what I was creating. So notice I'm continuing my lessons learned from that 2018. I pick a form factor and I stick with it throughout the entire project. I also have rules that will guide me. So this was the flowers and the patterns. So you see I'm continuing flowers and patterns. And so I did that for quite a while. And then you notice, I had black and white and some patterns. And this one, I remember we were traveling somewhere and I'd forgotten to take my colors with me, but I could still create. I had my little tiles with me as well. Again, playing with what is the thing you're drawing, make a pattern from it. And so this was helping me with the drawing because I would have to look and match myself. So yeah, so that's what I did for many, many days. And then I explored color on the patterns and did not like that as much, but went ahead, explored again colors on the patterns. What I find really interesting is when I flip back through this, I can see elements of my style developing. So if you're curious about wanting to develop your own creative style, a 100-day project is fantastic for doing that. I also explored some color combinations. So what happens when you use the, red, orange, yellow? What happens when you're doing yellow, orange, and green together? So did some little color combinations to see what's going on with that. Notice my patterns, something changed. So I would create this square, and then I would take the square and extrapolate it into what it would look like in a full mandala-ish or radial design. So that was a little bit of just letting my mind start to see and try to make my hand do what my mind was thinking of. So this one you can see. So sometimes it did not work exactly, but learned a lot in the process. So this one was kind of interesting, and so I changed it a little bit when we went in there. Yeah, so lots of exploration. Then I got tired of rules, and so I said I'm going to do something just whatever on these pages. But the consistency was I was continuing daily practice. What I did love about this is I could then hook it into other challenges because the 100 days came and went, and I kept going. I ended up, this was October, so the 100-day project finished in March. No, not March, what am I saying? May. So I continued June, July, August, September. This is October. This is the Inktober. So I took the word list from Inktober and said, hey, I'm going to just practice some lettering on the black paper. So I wanted to explore using all my different white pens on black paper, and just continued to see what showed up.